All right, so welcome everyone out there in social media land. I am Dr. Kent Key, and we are the Flint Public Health Youth Academy for another episode of A Youth Perspective. As we shared on our last talk show, we're really highlighting some awesome youth programs in the Flint, Genesee County area that are really making a major impact in the lives of our young people. And we're excited to do this for the remainder of the year and to really allow other residents and community members know how to get engaged, how to contact, how to get their young people connected to these wonderful resources and programs. So on today's show, we're excited to have Royce Stephens and the Dreams program here in Genesee County. We have an awesome dialogue prepared to really talk about what he's offering through his programming, how he's impacting young people, how it even came to be. And so to start us off, we have some awesome facilitators for today. So Jasmine Hall is acting as our moderator, and then our hosts is Kayla Shannon and Amir Brown. So we ask that you, get ready, get your phone right now, like and share right now, get other people out engaged, let them know that the Flint Public Health Youth Academy is live so we can get these numbers up and we can share this wonderful information. So with that, I'm going to pivot to Jasmine, Kayla, and Amir.
Hi, everyone. So as Dr. Key said, we're here today with Dreams. We're so honored to be in the presence of Royce Stephens today. But just to get us started off, if everyone could just introduce themselves by saying their name, what you do in the community, and what your role in the program that you're here today for is. And I'll start. So my name is Kayla Shannon. I am a sophomore at the illustrious Spelman College, studying political science and a minor in philosophy. I work for several nonprofits in the community, including the Michigan Organization on Adolescent Sexual Health, as well as the Power Initiative. I've also worked with the Flint Freedom Schools Collaborative, and I work for the Flint Public Health Youth Academy, which is what we're here for today. And I am an intern with you all.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Amir Ellison Brown, and I am a junior at UVM Flint, and also a FPHYA intern studying human resources. So glad to be here.
Hello, my name is Tomas Teo. I'm a senior and a half at Genesee Early College. I'm in my 12th grade year, so my fourth out of my fifth year, and I'm a Flint Public Health Youth Academy Youth Ambassador.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I am an epidemiologist and also the Health and EJ Chair for NAACP, and I'm a mentor for the Flint Public Health Youth Academy.
Hey everyone, I'm Khalil. I'm also a mentor and I work on the Flint Public Health Youth Academy staff.
Hi, I'm Onisha and I work at MSU. My background is podiatry and I am a mentor and staff with the Flint Public Health Youth Academy.
Hello everyone, my name is Briante Brown. I am an assistant GIS analyst at Michigan State University College of Medicine, the Youth Works Chair for the Flint Adult Branch of the NAACP, and the Membership Chair for the Youth and College State Conference. And I wear other hats around in the community as well.
I think it's just Cole. Cole, can you come off mute?
Hi, I'm Cole Mays, and I'm just a kid trying to get through school.
And he's also an intern for the Flint Public Health Youth Academy, and Briante is also a mentor for the Flint Public Health Youth Academy. All right, go ahead, Kayla.
Cole just summed up my whole life. I'm just a kid trying to get
I'm just a kid trying to make it.
That is it. But all right, so we'll get into our first question, which is, why is resilience and mental health important for Flint youth? What is the connection between sports and resilience or mental health? And anyone can jump in on like why it's important, and then Royce, of course, you can comment on that. Oh, sorry, I didn't even let you introduce yourself. Royce, please tell the community who you are.
Hi, my name is Royce Stephens. I'm the executive director of Dreams. Dreams is a nonprofit started here in Flint. Dreams is an acronym for Developing Respectful, Educated, Aspiring Minds with Sports. And I guess that kind of gives you an idea of how we started. We started out as a sports program, started focusing on academics and avoiding juvenile delinquency. And then slowly we got into the realm of really seriously trying to discuss public health.
Thank you for that. And so now we'll get into that first question, which is why is resilience / mental health so important for young people? And then Royce, like, what is the connection between these topics and sports?
Well, for me, resilience is important because we know that young people are going to have experiences that that are difficult that they have to face, and we kind of want to really make sure that we have things in place to foster resiliency in these young people, because we also know that how you respond to those encounters or those situations that can affect you the rest of your life. We know about ACEs and trauma can lead to it can lead to juvenile delinquency, but it also can lead to lifelong health issues. And we just want to make sure, now that we know, we don't just talk about it being a problem, but we talk about solutions. And then I tie it into sports because you see a lot of times you have issues in sports, and I make the connection because you might make a mistake in a game or you lose a tough game, and you need to be resilient in bouncing back. You might miss a shot. And that's why I always tell my players that ball is life, because there's so many similarities or intersections between life and sports.
You make such a great point. My dad actually coaches basketball, and I've spent years watching him talk to his players about the importance of mental toughness, and not just on the court, but there's also a level of emotional intelligence that it takes to be able to take a loss and assess what part you may have played in that loss, and then be able to still collaborate with the team to be able to come back better next time. And so there's, as you said, definitely a connection between sports and mental health, because that it's hard. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and you have to be able to be just as confident in yourself after a loss as you are during a win. And so, yeah, there's definitely that connection. Would anyone else like to comment on that question?
I'll jump in. This is Jasmine. I think that connection to mental health in Flint kids is so important. In addition to just generally, we've dealt with 2 major traumas in the past decade. And for young people, I mean, honestly, of any age, that can be difficult. And so having a program like Dreams, providing those skills to young people that will help them to be resilient is necessary. Whether we're talking about, the water crisis as a trauma or this current pandemic.
Absolutely, that's a great connection. Would anyone else like to comment on this question?
So I would like to just also just throw in the fact that when we think about resiliency, right? When we think about mental health and when we think about sports, science shares with us that sports is one way to deal with stress, which is mental health, right? It's one way to deal with frustrations. Some people go to the gym to work out, not because they love the gym, but because they don't want to blow up in the situation. So we know that there's a direct correlation between physical activity and stress. But when we also talk about resiliency, right, the ability to come from a space or a headspace and to get back in the game, mind, whether it's a physical sports game or whether it's getting back in the game at work or getting back into the game as it relates to your schoolwork. I think that connection or that triad that we just drew is something that is very powerful if we learn how to master it. And the mastery of it doesn't mean perfect it. Just for me, mastering it is making it work for us, making it work for you, right? And I think the other piece behind that is sometimes the word resiliency for me, I'm excited when I hear it, depending on where I am that day, right? If I'm in a real good, strong mental space, or if I'm really tired and exhausted, I don't want to hear about being resilient, because resilient means having to bounce back. And for some reason, people of color tend to have to bounce back more than others. And all that bouncing sometimes makes us dizzy. So sometimes we don't want to have to be resilient. We want to just be able to just be great off the cuff, right? And so again, understanding that balance and those different nuances, I think is very important in understanding the connection between resiliency, mental health, and sports.
Also, to piggyback on everything that's been said, when you're physically active, there's a release of endorphins in your brain chemistry that helps in you being able to do the bounce back, the resilience that's necessary. And one of the great things about being involved in sports is that it helps to keep those chemical balances within your brain chemistry that throughout trauma and other issues that come up, you can be helped by yourself, that you internally can do some of these things without having to rely on artificial medications and the like. So it's very important.
And on another note as well, I think the correlation between resilience and sports would have to do with the idea of practice. You know, in sports, you're always practicing to get better, to be more successful in the next upcoming game or whatever have you. And just like I think it was Mr. Farrakhan that was talking about practice, and I heard it in the Cormega song as well, that you have to, you know, like when you're practicing for the sport, whether you're going through challenges at home, whether it be regular day-to-day situations, building like your, not immunity, but being able to get through those situations so you can get through larger. It's all about stamina. Yup, it's all about getting that stamina, get through these challenges. And you know, it shouldn't have to be like that. And I just want people to know that the common misconception is that everyone, I mean, no, we are strong, resilient youth here in Flint, but everyone also tries to say that all Flint kids are all hard and they all resilient. They good. They're adults, you know, little kids, you know, they're grown, but they're not. You know, we still need the care and attention as well. And I just want to bring that, you know, in the image, but still, like I said, it's about practicing, trying to build yourself to that resilience, your stamina.
Tomas, it's interesting that you said that, because one of the things I was thinking about that we kind of left off on is how I also use sports just as a connector. So it's a tool to build relationship with young people. We just did a camp on October 2nd, and part of that camp was, you know, we did basketball and we did drills, but I also had recasts come in to do an emotional awareness activity. And they talked about anger and how the chemicals in your head react when you're angry, and about letting them calm down. These are young people that may or may not be interested in a day of mental health activities if they were invited to. So my idea was I can expose them to it, you know, give them a little bit, and just you know, steadily, slowly feed them this information and educate them. Don't force it to them, but mix it in with something fun, so they can, you know, they're having a good time, but now they also taking something home with them about mental health and mental awareness.
Oh no, mental health not fun.
What's that?
I said, oh, mental health is not fun.
Well, and it is. I just think what I've realized with working with young people is that we need to, as adults, really make an effort to reach them where they're at and where their interests are. All young people aren't super mature and beyond their years and know what's good for them and want to talk about what's good for them. So let's give them what they want and give them some fun, but let's also like put that message in there too. Kind of like a Disney movie. I remember going to a Disney movie with my daughter, and I think it was Zootopia. And at the end of the movie, I was kind of mad because I was like, how dare they sneak a message in here on me? I came here just to relax, but they snuck a message in here on me. And that's my same thing. Like, let's really educate people, but let's reach them where they're at, and appeal to their interests and figure out how we can use that to educate them.
That's beautiful. Would anyone else like to comment on that question before we move forward?
I was gonna say, like, also effective leadership and communication. Building up, if you want to see, it's public health, so like you got to be able to communicate this and build that brotherhood and leadership to be able to sometimes stand alone, but also realize that you can follow. But yeah, leadership and communication. I wanted to chime in on that.
While I was just sitting here thinking that when you meet them where they're at, you speak their language. And when you speak the language, and a lot of most of the kids, they understand the language in sports. And you can teach them life skills through teaching, through what they have to go through sports. So it's a positive for a lot of kids because they may not know anything about mental health, but they can tell you about what it's like to be on a sports team or not be accepted on a sports team. They can tell you all those different things. So I think that's one of the ways that we can communicate with young people, even people my age. If I know a little bit, just a little bit about some basketball or maybe some football, even some soccer, I can communicate with young people, and that makes me happy.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on that question before we move forward? All right, I'll turn it over to Amir for our next question.
So I know you kind of touched on what dreams is in the intro. So like how did the idea come up about dreams, or how did it come about for you?
I think like I always knew I would do this. I can even remember like thinking, I always imagined life when I was in undergrad, and I imagined like going to school, work, be a PR professional in my suit and tie, get off work, go volunteer at the community center with a, sweatsuit on or some gym shoes. But it didn't manifest like that. I didn't expect to start my own organization. What happened was my high school coach, when I moved back to Flint, asked me to start coaching. I started coaching 7th grade at Hamady. At that point, the skill set of my players wasn't where I thought it should be. So the next year I started coaching 6th graders. So that way I could teach them in 6th grade what I needed them to know for the 7th grade. In the 7th grade, you have what's called weekly eligibility, where they monitor their behavior and their grades. And if you mess up in 2 classes, you can't play that week. And if you mess up bad enough, you can't play for a whole semester. Nothing like that was in place for the elementary students. So it was kind of up to me to like put that in place. And if they had discipline problems or academic problems, I didn't necessarily sit them out. I might sit them out for a little while, or I might have punished them in practice or punished the whole team in practice with running and push-ups. So that's how I really like learned that impact on the connection between sports and academics. And then I started doing my research when I was working on my master's in public administration about how like programs such as out of school time programs, how they prevent juvenile delinquency. How it gives young people something to focus on other than getting in trouble. I also think I was able to create a culture with like my players, especially the group that I had from like 5th grade all the way through high school, because like the culture was, you don't get in trouble, you're a good citizen. And I think a lot of them bought into it because we did so much together. It was almost like a family. It's actually today was the funeral of one of the boys' grandfather. And, you know, just to see like all the other boys that came to support still, and they've been out of high school. Since 2013, but that group is still connected. And I would like to think that some of that, what we did, you know, brought them together. So the ideal kind of came from that, what I'm doing now. So like, I want to keep doing sports and use more sports to build those relationships and bonds with young people. But I also want to be able to use the sports to get an understanding of what interests are and build programs surround around young people's interests and try to really make them dreamers. And that's the new our term that we want to use now is dreamers. Everybody's a dreamer, and we just want to help them realize what their dreams are. So when they go to college, or they might not even need to go to college, but we can start strategizing plans, or they can experience what they want to do or where they want to be. They can start experiencing that as young people. A lot of people in other communities, they do that. They go to work with their parents who might own a construction business or whose parents are doctors. So it kind of just came organically. We just been morphing over time. It's one from a basketball program to even having like the urban agriculture program. We're looking at doing a fashion design program now. I think the gardening program is going to write a book, environmental justice book this summer. So all the stuff is just kind of happening organically. And just out of a need to serve and want to help people and motivate. Because I mean, school was born to me. I did good in school because of sports. I wanted to play sports. I had to play sports. I had to stay out of trouble, and I had to have good grades. And that was a tool that kept me on the right path. Even with two parents at home that didn't play, I was more concerned with, you know, making sure I could play sports than knowing that I get in trouble. That was more motivating than my parents.
Wow, no, wow, very good. That what I got from that was that, you know, it's good to teach them very early habits and be able to instill in them for when they face anything in the future, like college, later years in high school. It's better to have them prepared for anything that may come their way, you know, just to not enforce them habits beforehand. In the younger years when you're like 11, 12, etc., it's better to teach them earlier and teach them younger. So that's a very, very nice.
Yeah, it's the saying about that. Like, I think it's easier to raise a child than I think it's not reform. I'm messing it up now.
It's easier to raise a child than it is to fix a man.
Yes. Yes. And it also, you know, you have that connection again. So like you can expose them to things or just a lifestyle. Or like I remember going out of town, we took a trip and we went to Milwaukee and we rented a big boat where they could travel around the river and see the city. And, you know, the $60 million apartments, not houses, apartments. And for the boys to ask the tour guide, you know, who stays there, and they're thinking athletes. And the tour guide like, no, it's not just athletes, it's business professionals stay there. And, you know, now you presenting other visions to them, other dreams to them, where now there's other career paths. Like, wait a minute, who makes $1 million? Who can afford $1 million apartment? What do they do for a living? You know, learn about those careers. And then again, hopefully that translates to someone that takes school a little more serious, or, you know, decisions about their life, you know, they have more motivation now to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I'm looking in the chat, and Cole says that a tip for communicating with youth is showing understanding without estranging yourself. We need to tell people that they are able to do anything as long as they put in the effort and time to learn. Everyone can, so stop with the excuses and get to work. Thank you, Cole, for that comment. And I think it speaks to the work that you're doing, Royce, with connecting and communicating with young people, but also letting them know that like anything is possible and showing them a world beyond the world that they may have previously imagined or thought. Even if they're only seeing this world because of basketball, or if they're only interested in their grades because it allows them to be on the team, like their teachers not going to ask them why they're passing the class as long as you're passing. So it doesn't matter what makes you do it, you just got to do it.
Right.
So would actually, that was a question just for Royce. Go ahead. Do you have any other comments on that question, Royce?
No, I was just going, well, what Cole was saying, I do agree, Cole. We do, everybody, they do need to know that they can accomplish things. And sometimes I think people do feel bad for themselves. And I guess that's another tie into sports. That's just like walking into a gym, or you see these programs that might not be a great program, but they work hard. And they work hard and they get better. There's some that put their heads down and we're never going to be good. But there's some that, no, we're going to accomplish this goal. And you see them turn around. But sometimes you need to be taught that too. And I think that's part of that resiliency, because giving up is part of trauma. Like some people, if you didn't know it, you wouldn't understand that everybody faces these experiences. You especially now, this age group, you younger people, you got social media and no one posts about their struggles. And everything is like the glamorous life. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I got $300 shoes.
Main character.
Yeah, and everything's perfect. So now you look at your life and you like, why God? Why is my life like this? But no, everybody has problems, and it's good to kind of be able to share and talk about that. And then also not just talk about the problem, but let's talk about solutions to these problems. We talk about research in Flint, and that's the thing. Everybody comes to Flint and says there's problems in Flint. And it's duh, we've known that. Okay, what are we gonna do about these problems? This group here coming together. This is a group bringing young people together and teaching you guys about using your voice. But if we don't, you look in times, a lot of times, and that's what I try to do, expose people outside the ghetto sometimes, because sometimes you have that ghetto mentality, and you can be here in Flint and you don't have to be ghetto. You can understand there's more, or there's possibilities for you. But if no one shares those possibilities with you, how do you know that? If your next door neighbor life looks just like your life, and the guy down the street life looks just like your life, you don't believe that there's a different chance. You don't know you can be an epidemiologist. You know what I'm saying? You don't know that, oh, I could be a podiatrist, because you never even met a podiatrist in real life before, because you barely have insurance. So you don't go to the doctor for anything. So what's a podiatrist? Who's gonna go there? When I started at Michigan State and I walked around, I think Dr. Key was one of the first people I met. And I was like, hold up, you do this for a living? This is your job? You just do research and tell people about your research, or you do these projects? But if people don't know about them, how can you aspire to be that? Briante, what are you going to school for?
Get my master's in spatial methods, health geography. That's geographic information systems.
This is not a common job. So how many young people coming up in Flint know about that career pathway? And now you're not going to a factory job, and nothing against factory jobs, but how many people just love their job going to a factory job? When you can find something that you're really passionate about and you love, just think about then now think about the type of parent you are with your child, and how much more patient you're going to be with your child because you got a job you love and that you're not stressed out about. So you're breaking that cycle. And I don't think we do enough of that in our community. And that's my whole thing. When I try to come up with ideas, it's what's something that's just totally different? And we had the USDA talk to a group about careers in agriculture. And they're telling them you come out of college, you making $60,000, $70,000 a year as an economist. And young people might not know what that means, but then you have to tell them the average household income in Flint. Who knows the average household income in Flint?
What is it, 28.8?
It's right. It's in right around that 30. It's right. I think it's just below 30. So now you can come out making that twice that. And it's something, and especially if you like math and like numbers. And it's like really like trying to help people find these career paths that they love so they can go to work and be happy and then come back and train more young people in the inner cities or where they're from in those same career paths and pull them up. You know, I think that's part of like why I do it too, because I mean, a lot of our trauma is because of economics. A lot of the public health disparities is because of economics. It's not all just because we're just of color. Some, you know, a lot of it is economic division, and you know, give people opportunities to develop economically and financially and come up with these different careers, or just give people the tools to talk about it. I mean, somebody mentioned the water crisis. Give the young people the tools to say, no, you can't do this here in Flint.
So Royce, what you're saying, economics has always been the driving force. It was the whole driving force behind slavery. It was around economics, but it's not so much that it's not because of color, but because of the economic divide and the way the systems were set up. Unfortunately, minority communities or communities of color tend to fare on the lower end of the
Yes.
totem pole from an economic perspective. So I just think putting that into context, it's not about just color, because they're poor European Americans as well. But when we talk about disparities, right? When we look at ethnicity and race, people of color tend to bear the brunt of those disparities. And most of those factors, as you just alluded to, are driven by economics. So I just wanted to kind of put that in context.
Nope, systematic racism is real. Yep.
Thank you.
Whole system.
Yeah, thank you for that context. And I think this filters into our next question, which is what need or gap in the community does this work address? And I think you've sort of already touched on that a little bit, but if you'd like to sort of hammer your point in, I'd love to hear.
I think the need or gap is one. Flint had a great community ed program at one point in time, and it was fun activities for young people to participate in and keep them occupied. And you know, with tax dollars being gone, and the first thing they do is they want to cut programming in the schools, and now we don't have as much of that stuff. So you know, sometimes some young people get in trouble, not because they're bad, not because they have bad parents, but maybe because they're latchkey kids. Maybe they just need some extra programming to keep them occupied. You know, there are different reasons. So like, there's different reasons why young people need these programs. Everybody's not the same. So I think that it fills that gap. I also like that, you know, I think some of these programs can help with bringing cultures together, because I try to appeal to young people from different and diverse backgrounds so that they can interact with each other and learn each other. There are some differences culturally, but it doesn't make you like a bad person, or it doesn't mean just because I align with this one culture identity portion of my culture, but everything doesn't, you know, go across the whole culture. But just giving them just the chance to deal with people from different backgrounds and understand different people.
Also put in the chat, like I was listening to this talk about resilience before, and they were talking about kids need at least 2 consistent and loving adults in their lives to, you know, grow up successful. And, you know, Dr. Bailey mentioned at least 2. And I think a program like this kind of stands in the gap in that way too, because so many of us grow up in single parent households. And so having that additional adult, whether it's, you know, your coach, the person in the program, the teacher, somebody at church, it fills that gap too.
Thanks so much.
No, there is research that talks about that. Resiliency is fostered by, like you said, loving adults. So it's a loving family, a loving community. and programs that have like nurturing adults in them. That's one of the things that, you know, they say like that makes programs successful or make it appealing to young people. They also say programs that are challenging, and programs that like teach them about like careers. But that fact that you have those adults around that's really like loving and nurturing, I think that makes a big deal to young people.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like knowing that you can go out and there's people that have your back or you can talk to. Yeah, it takes that village, you know. And what you're doing right here, this is that village that's providing that.
So I'll tell you a story. Like when we talk about how this all relates to sports, I had one team. I used to call them the Renegades, and that's because all those guys had been in some type of trouble, like in trouble with the police, and they were like ninth grade, but they played so hard and they played so tough, and they did real good when we traveled. And I remember one morning picking up a guy. We went to Lansing, and he got mad. We were losing, and he wouldn't get off the court. And a mom had to walk him off the court or whatever. And like we had words during the game, but it wasn't like anything major. And he just came back to me later and was just like, "You're the first like adult man that didn't try to fight me." And for a guy in the ninth grade to say that to you, you know, you don't even, somebody like me, I grew up in Hamity, two-parent home. Dad worked at GM, mama had a job at the city of Flint. You know, I was all right. I didn't encounter a lot of that. So for this guy to say something like that to me and then explain to me like his dad, he had to fight his dad, he had to fight his mom, boyfriend. And like the connection me and him had after that day was like deep. But it all came from basketball, and it just like our conversations changed now. So like I can talk to you about some other things that aren't basketball related, like about life, about decision making, about your choices. And I think people sometimes that falls to the wayside. We don't even understand that. We don't understand the power of that. Yeah, Briante, but I think, you know, you guys are role models too, because you got to realize, like, if it was just the parents or just the teachers, like we think, there wouldn't be a need for this academy right here. There wouldn't be a need for you to be a mentor. So, I mean, I think that's the proof that we know, like, it's necessary, because as many young people we have here right now, think about how many young people aren't here. Think about how many young people that don't know about this program. As much as you try to market, you know, we're still missing people. And that's the hard part. Like, and that's why I think like we all need to work together, because I think we all have different areas that we can connect with and where we can pull people from, or we have different levels of interest, different things we can bring. That's like with the camp, I had Recast come do the mental health. I had Commit to Fit to come do nutrition, because they're experts, but I'm gonna get you at least 75 kids here to talk to and work with.
Yeah, I really feel what you're saying, Mr. Stephens, like with your whole approach with your program. This is my first time with honesty, hearing about the program. But just I really love your approach, because some of the other youth groups that I've been in, like I was a part of the Genesee County Prevention Coalition, and we were trying to reach the youth. I was talking about you need to be relatable as well as understanding. You know, many people try to put these labels, like with substance abuse and misuse. They try to shame the action that the person did instead of trying to have a conversation with them and see what was going on. Like, how are you? Like, what problems are you facing in your life? You know, and the story that you just brought up about the other young man that you spoke with, and he said that this is the first time like someone's actually like talked with me. I feel what you're saying. Like, that's all what I think how it should be, is approaching people and not, you know, bashing them for like their actions, but just talking to them. And because, you know, like it's like finding the roots of the issue. You just see the dandelion at the top, but you're not really seeing like what roots are underneath that soil. So I really feel what you're saying, sir.
I always talk about, like when you say root, I got a manufacturing background. I worked in the auto industry for like 5 or 6 years. And they talk about root cause analysts. Like a lot of times we fix symptoms. We don't necessarily fix what the real problem is. So, and we can't fix the problem if we don't listen. Like sometimes we'll just come in and say that this is the problem. Like, so the young person using the drugs necessarily isn't the problem. That's one of the side effects, or that's one of the symptoms of whatever their problem is. And yep, so we are on them about using drugs, but we don't even find out like what's going on in their life that drives them to do that. And it's hard though. It's hard. It's very hard as an adult because some actions need to require discipline. Some actions require love, and sometimes they clash. But I will tell you, as a coach, like after a while, like I was amazed because like I had a reputation of being like within Hamity probably one of the tougher coaches or mean coaches. But I was like, these guys keep coming around me. If I'm in the building, they keep coming around. And it was like, it was interesting. Like I could really like be on their case, and they dealt with it, like doing push-ups and running and never smiling at them, man. And they kept coming around. And I just felt like that was powerful. Like you can have that impact on young people with that discipline. And I think there's sometimes like I should have been nice and been more loving. And there's probably sometimes I should have been more stern, but like there's no right answer. And that's the thing, you know, we as young people to understand that there's no right answer, because knowing that if you want us to understand that you're not the same as everybody else, you got to understand that it's hard for us to understand how to deal with you guys because you're all different. You know, I had a kid on my team, a point guard on my team that I never yelled at. I never had to yell at him. Like it was all conversations. He knew already. Or I had a team that if I corrected them on anything they did wrong, they put their heads down. Like it was more, I had to be more uplifting with that team. There's some teams I got to be wild and yelling and acting crazy. You know, it just depends.
That Royce speaks to some of the child psychology literature. And then I remember listening to Mrs. Deloney and others that have worked in youth development for years. And they've always said, even as a child, even when you're in kindergarten, you can tell when your teachers don't like you. Now they can smile and say nice stuff, but you can kind of feel it. And I think that it kind of goes to what you're saying as a coach. You don't have to smile in their face and do all those things, but they can genuinely sense when a person cares about them, or when someone even wants the best or have their best interests at heart, even if it ain't what they don't want to do. I don't want to eat broccoli, right? They genuinely love me, other than they just want to punish me by not giving me what I want. And I think that youth can sense that. We can sense that with adults. As kids, we can sense it. And I just think it's that innate connection that we have to spirit. So
discernment, that discernment is discovered.
Okay, so is that all the comments? So we'll go to the next question. So how do youth get to be a part of this program that you have and offer out?
So right now, I think I shared my website, www.wearedreams.org. I'm doing some work on that, but I'm planning on having that modified or updated by the end of first quarter of next year. So that's going to be one source. But basically, the goal is just to have different programming and help. I can help, you guys help promote the different programs that we offer. I also want to have by the early December, I want to have a calendar of proposed activities that we're going to do for next year. And I can share that with you guys as well.
Yep. So we'll be happy to put that down in the chat, the website, if it's not already up there. and just keep putting more information out on your program. Is Kayla here?
Yep, I'm right here.
Okay, pass it on to Kayla then.
So our next question is, how did the work of Dreams change in the pandemic, and how is it still different since we are like still in it? And can you highlight some of the things that you all have done lately?
So our first gardening set program was launched during the pandemic. So that kind of taught us, just like you guys are right now meeting virtually, like I learned to use the technology at that point in time. And there's also like teaching young people about like you can raise plants at home. So the first group of young people raised a collard green plant at home. They had a bucket, and I taught them how to use that bucket as a planter. And like that was our first lesson. And then they raised that plant throughout. We met just like you guys are meeting now virtually. We met once a week for an hour, and we had different activities around the plant. Of course, we talked about the growth of the plant, but we also sometimes related to, we talked about mental health, and was able to tie that in. We talk about resiliency. The resiliency is one of that's why we picked the collard green plant, because it was fall. The collard green can handle a little cold weather. Some of the plants gonna winter up in the cold. So yeah, they talk about Flint youth are resilient. They're plants that are resilient naturally. But to help that plant survive, you still got to do some things for it. So sometimes if it's going to be an early frost, you might have to cover those plants up. You got to help protect it to foster that resiliency. Yeah, it's because they're resilient, but sometimes they still need some of our help. And then they also did another, like a smaller planter. They did herbs. And we talked about how those herbs had to be inside. While the collard green could be outside, them herbs had to be inside in the window because they couldn't handle that cold weather in the fall. So they weren't quite as resilient. But we're going to help them out, though, because we're going to give them what they need to still grow and mature and, and be healthy. Because, there's nothing wrong with them for not being as resilient as the collard plant. We just going to make sure they are all right. And we had those lessons. We also talked about the fact that collard green, that it helps mitigate the effects of lead, those leafy green vegetables. So we had to tie that in. So when we talk about resiliency, that makes me think about now transformative resiliency. And I don't know if you guys have talked about that, but let's take our misfortunes and almost make those into as tools or more, to help us do better, because, we're going to be successful. Not even though we had the water crisis, we're going to be successful. Oh, so we have this water crisis. So now we're going to learn a little bit more. We know it's going to affect the mental health of young people. But we're going to become mental health experts, or we're going to be the experts on these topics. We're going to be the experts on agriculture, because we know our community is going to need help. Handling that lead in their body and their system down the road. So we're going to become those people that's experts on agriculture. We're going to become those people as experts on environmental justice, because we don't want that to happen anywhere. We've been through it. We already know about it. And we wouldn't have done it before, but you got us this one time, the water crisis, but we're going to show y'all got us bad, but we're going to come back, and we're going to come back stronger, and we're going to make y'all understand that it affected us in a bad way, and we could have folded, but no, we're going to come out better and stronger, and we're going to be leaders, and we're going to help others, not have to endure what we endured.
And Dr. Bailey also, while you were talking, added a question onto that. She says, how are they working? How are you all working with youth, given the current rise of COVID in Genesee County?
This summer, the gardening program was outside. So we worked outside. Face masks were made available. This basketball camp, all participants were given face masks. So we followed the standard COVID protocols. I'll be honest, I was nervous. I was very nervous doing it. So it's two different things though. Like I've also read about on social media, parents looking for activities for their young people. These young people haven't been able to interact and do anything over, a year and a half, almost 2 years now. So now that's one public health concern. COVID's another one. So they're like competing. So it was a lot of prayer. But I gave them the face mask, try to do this standard protocols when the students came in, asked them about, their contact, check the temperatures. And other than that, like I said, it was a lot of prayer. Trying to keep, doing some distancing, social distancing, but that's hard with sports. It's very hard with sports, and that was hard serving that many young people. But we were able to break them up into smaller groups so they weren't all together though.
Thank you. And now I'll pass it to Amir for our next question.
So my next question is, who do you collaborate with? And if anyone, you can shout them out or give them like a little summary, a little bit.
I heard that who I collaborate with. What was the second part of that?
It was mainly who you collaborate with. Mainly, that was the main question.
So like I said, I'm open to collaborate with pretty much anybody because I think that's just where we are at. Like, because there's so many people in our community that are operating in silos. They're doing great things, but we're all doing things like in our own different spaces. And like one of the things I always use is like I always have people put their hands together. And if you have a partner and having somebody trying to push your hands down, it's a lot harder when you have two hands together versus if you got one hand by itself. When you got both of those hands together, you're like a lot stronger. So I think like working together and partnering with other organizations is like, that's the way. So like right now I work a lot with New Standard Academy. I work with the Flint Development Center. Actually, I've been working with MSU Extension with the gardening portions. I'm working on some things with Westwood Heights and the food bank. The Hurley Food Pharmacy. Unofficially, like other youth basketball programs. So really, I just want to try to support other organizations. Oh, the YMCA. We're about to announce a league and a camp there at the Y. That's going to be in January. So like for me, it's about working with anybody, pretty much. I'm that rapper. They're like, I want to collab. Could I get on your mixtape? You know what I'm saying? I got a bar I want to drop real quick. But no, I just think that's just the way we need to be. We all need to like start collaborating together and working together and like using our different powers together and, being that force.
Absolutely agreed. And so that with that being said, what do you think is in store for Dreams? What's coming in the next year, in the next 5 years, long term, whatever? What are your wildest dreams for your organization?
Wildest dreams, and I don't think it's that wild. Like I could talk about like different programs that I got ideas about, but the real thing that I really want to do is eventually I want to drive policy. I want to drive change. So what I really want to look at is moving Dreams into a space where we can be an example by doing a research. I've already talked to a particular person. I'm not gonna say any names about, but like finding a group of young people and like following them through school and providing these resources for them. And I mean, it's already believed, scholarly journal articles already say that these young people that receive these extra resources are gonna perform better, but like, let's really show it. And then let's drive policy that this is where we need to have, that social net. You guys are cutting the social net and we need more in this area right here. When you're giving back, this shows that like, yeah, this is trauma. This is how we're gonna help with trauma. So there's enough, like I said earlier, there's enough research that shows that young people in Flint are facing trauma or adverse childhood experiences at a high rate. But let's also have that research now that shows that we knew that our young people were being exposed to trauma at a high rate. And this is what we did to help them, and it worked. This was the impact of it. and, you know, adjusting it. If it doesn't work the first, what we try at first, it doesn't give us the impact, you know, let's talk to young people, let's talk to experts, let's do more study, and let's tweak the programs, but let's like really create these programs that's going to drive this change. And then let's really get in the ear of these people that control like the national budgets and the state budgets and local budgets. And we're going to tell them that, yes, we'll vote for you, but this is what we need when you vote for us. And that's what we want to teach young people. We want to teach them that political system. We want to teach them how to be advocates, how to go up and maneuver through the red tape, how to speak in front of city council, how to speak in front of the state house. You know, what do you need to do? How to write a press release, all that stuff. How to put an event together. You know, teaching young people how to do that, because you guys, you guys are the ones that's going to lead us in the future. And so basically the change kind of starts with you guys and really what you want to do and how you see how things need to be. Yeah, we got a blueprint based off what happened in the past, but we need to remix some of that stuff.
Absolutely. And so now we're close, really, really close to closing out. But we wanted to ask the young people of FPHYA if you had any quick suggestions or recommendations for Dreams, either for ideas that could improve their work or potential partners that they should be talking to, or other comments that you wanted to share.
Hi, Mr. Stephens. So one of the programs that I didn't hear you mention, and it just popped in my head since you were talking about being at Carmen, there is a after school and summer program called Upward Bound. And I think in the summertime, they go for a couple months. And then during the school year, it's like Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they're at Mott. And I know particularly for the summer, they always have a period of exercise that we used to have to do either indoors or outdoors. So I think that might actually be a good idea, since you want to get on everybody's track to get over there. And I'll actually send Mr. Martin an email. I haven't talked to him since COVID actually, but I'll send him an email to see what they have in store for their physical activity portion. Because some stuff is separate with just boys, and I actually wasn't sure if you were doing just boys or if it was boys and girls.
Boys and girls.
Okay, it's joint, it's co-ed. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's good. But yeah, and then Gear Up, of course, but I'm sure they probably told you about Gear Up already. So, I got to be in both.
I'm familiar with them, but I have not reached out to anybody at Gear Up.
Oh, okay. I'll see if Kurt Reed's still working there. I'm not sure if he is, but you said you got a contact?
Me? No. But I used to work for Gear Up.
Okay.
So maybe still.
I know who used to be the director, so I'm not sure if he still is. So I'll contact him and Mr. Martin and let Dr. Kia and Jazz know, so we can go from there.
And I think another thing though, so when I was a kid, it was like sports was one thing, right? But then there were other physical activity engagements that were not necessarily considered sports. So like if you took gymnastics, if you took tap dance, if you took ballet, if you took whatever, those were also things that as I got older, I start seeing like football players taking like ballet and yoga and all that stuff so they can get into the center, their core and all of those things. And I remember we were working on this physical activity project where we actually brought, she's transitioned since then. Her name was Ms. Diamond Jackson. And she taught the kids how to do African dance and drum. She used to work with Kevin Collins off and on. But anyway, she taught the kids how to do African dance and culture. And I will be interested to see how we teach athletes how to do that, but also in doing that, understanding their core and those things as well. So could there be a merger of like cultural dance with sports? Because I remember some of it wasn't love and basketball, but it's been so many type of shows or movies where they kind of merge hip hop and basketball together. And I remember this one girl, I forgot the show, but she was a choreographer, right? And she was getting moves from watching the guys do things on the basketball court and vice versa. And so just wondering if there's another way to kind of broaden it so that it incorporates those who see themselves as dancers, but who may not necessarily see themselves as athletes. So just kind of thinking about broadening it in that way, Royce.
Yes. And the thing, what I look at too, is I think like it gives me that opportunity to maybe like introduce them to some of those guys that might come to like open gym, or those young ladies that are come play basketball, that getting them introducing them to those type of things as well. Like I always want to have like programs for the non-athletes or the non-basketball players. That was one of the things I always thought about, is like, I have this group of young people that I'm working with, but I'm missing out on this many people because they're not either, some want to be athletes and they don't have the skill level, but some that's just not their interest, but they still need attention. So I'm with you on that. But it allows, like, because you have those different groups, right? And now you can also possibly connect those groups together, because like now some of my basketball players that I normally have, I get them to come, introducing them to something new, and then they meet somebody else that they might not even interact with, because everybody they interact with plays basketball. So now I have you interacting with somebody else that does other community activities, and these two different groups are meeting at this dance or whatever, at the dance class, and they're learning together, and they also can learn history at the same time.
Great, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Go ahead,
Mr.
Tom.
Stephens, there is nothing other than I guess like incorporating like music and arts, maybe like a different program or something like that. There's nothing I would say that you need to change. You're doing just great. We need more people like you, and I wish I knew like more about the program, if like more information could be spread up, partnerships. But what I really think would be dope for your program is to make it an elective and stuff related to that, an elective, because this is very important. This is a necessity in the community. Like I know Dr. Key was mentioning about how one program was teaching like cultural dances and stuff related to that. I know at Mott Middle College, they have like a steel drum band, and they have like other little additions as electives. So this would be a great elective, like to really merge it. This is what the education we need. This is what we need to be taught, the real education. And this is included in love, and their support. So that's what I would love, is to see this become part of the school curriculum.
Thanks, Tomas. I think Dr. Bailey is up. I see a hand raised.
I'm sorry, but I will say, when he was talking about correlating dance with the athletes, which we know they've done that with football, basketball, and the like. We have a studio here in Flint, Heart of Worship Dance Studio, and Portia Clemens is the dance choreographer director that you might want to also make some sort of connection with. And if you were to contact Kenyatta at WOW, she could make that correlation for you.
Okay.
Great. This is awesome. Amir, Jasmine, are there any other questions?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we just want to thank you, Mr. Stephens, for coming and really sharing about dreams. This is an awesome opportunity for young people in the Flint, Genesee County area to engage, to get active, and to really receive the type of community level leadership and education and exposure, more importantly, in this area. So we thank you again for joining us. All of you out in social media land, this is another edition of A Youth Perspectives by the Flint Public Health Youth Academy. We will be here every other Friday at 6:30. We hope to see you on our next show. Have a great evening.